We've been saying it since long before the PlayStation VR2 launched, but we need fewer developers building games from the ground up exclusively for VR, and more developers bringing existing flat-screen games into VR. Now, don't get me wrong, don't get mad in the comments. I want both, and I know both are important. But flat-screen games tend to be bigger, deeper mechanically, and have that name recognition that'll attract more players to adopt VR, which is why I love FlatsVR's mission statement. Take recognizable flat-screen games and give them the full VR treatment. And with this week's release of Roboquest, a VR version of the insanely popular flat game, they're giving the roguelite genre the kick in the ass it's needed for quite a while. Roboquest VR puts us in the role of a giant robot, running through procedurally generated areas, taking down as many enemies as you can and just staying alive. Why? I don't actually know. Despite the fact I've been playing Roboquest religiously for close to 20 hours now, I'm no closer to caring about what's going on here narratively. It's not an integral part of the game, but it does exist in little dialogue boxes and collectible journal entries. But I'm playing Roboquest for the challenge, to say that I've played it, to say that I've unlocked everything there is to unlock, and conquer it. In doing so, won't be easy. Each run of Roboquest begins the same. You get a choice of a random weapon and set out. And with over 80 weapons to find, unlock, and purchase, there's so many options. Handguns, shotguns, SMGs, sniper rifles. Yeah, sure, those are all here. But there's also bows and arrows, some oddball stuff like these laser junk beams and Tesla rifles, splasher rifles, and weapons infused with elemental effects like fire or ice. But the more you play, the more you realize that these developers desperately want you to branch out and try other things like melee attacks and bonk attacks, jumping on the enemies' heads. And that's crazy to me. I love that it's here, and I'm betting if I ever get good enough at this game to be able to play that way, the footage will look so much better than what I'm showing you here. But right now, I'm just focused on surviving. And surviving is not easy. You're stocked with everything you need. One weapon in your hands and one stored on your back. You can slide, jump, and eventually double and triple jump, all of which is strangely mapped to pushing up or down on the right analog stick. A decision that sounds terrible on paper, but one that you get used to really fast. And the ability to grind these rails. And despite the fact that this might all look like Borderlands stylistically, the dual focus of platforming and shooting makes this whole thing feel like an homage to Ratchet and Clank. There's even some nice platforming challenges hidden within each level. And the risk-reward factor of any good roguelite is here in full force, with random perks to choose every time you level up, a whole board of permanent upgrades to unlock, and health orbs that fly out of downed enemies that only remain on the playfield for a few seconds, forcing you to run into danger for the chance of collecting just a few extra HP. Obviously, my experience won't be the same as yours, mostly because some people will be better at the game and some will be worse. But for the first 7 or 8 hours, I never even completed a run, and it took me a really long time to unlock alternate routes. I just played, collected as many wrenches as I could find in order to unlock perks after each run, and I just kept grinding, banging my head against the wall, thinking if I could just unlock enough perks, the game would eventually get easier. But that's only true to a certain degree. These perks just aren't as game-changing as something like Synapse, where the more you unlock, the more invincible you feel. These are minor upgrades at best, helping you on your way, sure, boosting your health slightly, and offering up more options whenever you're given one. So the real skill you need to improve in Roboquest is your own. And if you do ever get tired of the run and gun action, I'm happy to say that Roboquest gives you a reason to slow down and explore. Data logs are hidden everywhere, and you're rewarded for finding them. Roboquest is a fast game, and somebody must have told these guys that I could barely hear the music in V-Racer Hoverbike over the sounds of my engines. Because in Roboquest, it's on full display, and it's so good. Like, for real. Turn off the music and the vibe completely changes. It feels like it's pushing you forward. You're constantly moving and strafing and dodging and keeping an eye out on all sides of you, which is why I'm ever so slightly disappointed with how it's launching. The PSVR2 version of Roboquest runs reprojected, and when you're moving this fast and spinning with the analog stick this much, it's way more noticeable than in slower paced games. And I don't know, maybe I've spent too much time with it this week, or maybe I'm too focused on the action to notice, or maybe I'm developing Stockholm Syndrome. But as someone who normally despises reprojection, yeah, I still hate it here, but it is tolerable. Flat2VR is promising that they're working to get it up and running at 90 frames native, and that patch is dropping within a few weeks. So as great as Roboquest VR is right now, it's about to look and play even better. The resolution's fine, not crystal clear, but certainly not blurry. There's some aliasing shimmer, which I always prefer to soft edges, and a bit of popping when you look way out into the distance, but it looks fine. I personally think Max looks dumb, and the font for her dialogue looks cheap, but now I'm just nitpicking to nitpick. Hey, Future Brian here, editing myself into my own review. I just played the day one patch, and I'm happy to report that the haptics are better than they've ever felt, and they just added in headset haptics every time you get shot, so that's pretty great. I already mentioned that Roboquest is hugely focused on the weapons, which is why some of these other concerns jumped out at me. Some of the weapons require a reload, and you can choose to do that manually with a quick button press to drop the empty magazine, and then L1 to spawn a new one. Or it can be automatic. That's great. I like choices. But there's also energy-based weapons that require you to keep an eye on them, making sure not to let them overheat. But it's kind of irrelevant here. Because unlike every other game ever made, letting them overheat is the better option here. It's just so much faster to let it overheat and reset than it is to monitor the temperature gauge. Seems like a massive oversight. And while plenty of these guns will allow you to grab hold and steady the weapon with your offhand, I never saw a difference in the recoil, so why would I bother? It's not major, it's just worth pointing out. But the biggest downfall at launch might be the omission of multiplayer. Normally I wouldn't care all that much. I love single player games. But, well, remember those permanent unlocks I was talking about earlier? Well, unlocking all of those, along with 6 character classes, are sort of the reason to play. And after a while, and I'm seriously talking about 10, 11, 12 hours here, it starts feeling like a grind, and having a friend along for the ride would make it fun again. Again, Flat2VR is promising that the 2-player co-op mode is coming, but it's just not here at launch. Despite a few minor complaints and a couple of bigger ones, Roboquest is a great game, and the VR port's solid. I'll be way happier when the 90 frames native mode gets here, and even happier when multiplayer gets added in, but even as is, this trounces Compound and Sweet Surrender in just about every way imaginable. The insane locomotion, wealth of content, handful of bosses, reasons to explore, it's all here, and this is why hybrid games are just better.